The reason people are giving you objections like, I can't afford it, or let me think about it, isn't typically the reason that you think. And this is something that's not often discussed in the coaching industry and in this space, but it's a very, very common thing that we talk about in the world of sales, which is the smoke screen, and actually how to really know whether or not you really do have a money objection, or if you're dealing with a deeper objection that they're not telling you. In this video, I'm going to break down some of the most common objections, like the money objection, as well as the time objection, or the let me think about it, or I got to ask my partner. And we're going to talk about what's actually going on that they're not saying. Because so often my clients will come to me and say they have this objection, and they're all fixated on what the client was saying to them in the moment, but they're often missing the cues and the deeper objection that for whatever reason they didn't stick around to hear, they didn't ask the right questions, and now they're addressing something that isn't really the root of the problem. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jana Niksa, the Authentic Sales Coach. I work with coaches, consultants, and service-based entrepreneurs, helping you mix the woo and the do to create high-ticket offers and enroll high-ticket clients. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that after my 20 years, really 22 plus years as a top performer in the sales space, we often focused on this thing called smokescreen objections. And I've heard very few sales coaches or any business coaches actually speak to what is happening when you get a smokescreen objection. And the issue is, then I find that people are focusing on these other pieces, these surface level objection, and not actually digging deeper and taking the time to really ask some pointed questions to understand what the actual objection is. And so once they address some of this surface level stuff, they're still stuck with the person not buying. And it's because they're not really digging deeper into what the actual issues are. And what this can do is leave you confused, doubting yourself, wondering, what are you missing? And the truth is, in this case, you're missing the real truth about why they're not buying. And you know me, I'm going to give it to you straight. One of the reasons I see people not picking up on this real truth is they're not asking the right questions because they're afraid of the answer. Because let's be real, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, they can't afford it. I mean, they would definitely buy it if they could. Or, oh, their partner can't help it. Their partner doesn't want them to invest. And that's a lot easier to hear than they're not sold. And so me being the voice of reason that I am for my clients is to say, what makes more sense? Do you want to continue to speak to the objection, the smoke screen that they're just giving you? Or do you really want to tackle what's going on underneath? Even if it hurts a little, that's going to be far more impactful and powerful than just rearranging deck furniture on the Titanic. So first, let's talk about how to dig deeper to get to the root of the problem. And then we're going to talk about how to actually sell them based on the real objection. So if we know 9 times out of 10, if your offer is dialed in and you're speaking to the right people inside your audience, bringing those people through a qualifying process onto sales calls, and then they tell you things like they can't afford it, then obviously they're not sold 9 times out of 10. I will give you that every so often leads will squeak by that maybe aren't qualified or not ready or whatever it may be. But if you have your sales process in place and you've validated your offer and you know who you're speaking to, then you should really only be getting on calls with premium buyers, right? So when they tell you things like they can't afford it, what they're really telling you is they're not sold. And so if you know that in the back of your mind, then we want to isolate the objection first and foremost. So totally, we always have to like meet them where they are, right? Totally hear you, totally understand. Money aside, on a scale of 1 to 10, like how well do you feel like this offer addresses what you need and where you want to go, and see what they have to say. Often at this point, they will say an 8 out of 10, or maybe a 7 out of 10. And so this is where I was talking about before, where people don't want to dig because they don't want to know the answer, right? And it's like, tell me what would make it a 10 out of 10. And so we have to start to understand and treat our sales calls like marketing research. And so guess what? They're going to tell you when you have the nerve to stick around and continue the sales conversation past the first objection. They're going to tell you what is missing from your pitch. They're going to tell you what is missing from your offer. And here's the other kicker. 9 times out of 10, whatever they tell you is part of your offer. You're just not communicating it effectively. You're not positioning yourself in the ROI as something that is valuable to them. So you don't necessarily even lack an offer issue. You lack an articulation of value issue. But the only way you're going to know that is if you stay with them through the money objection. Because if you think about it from their perspective, it's a lot easier to just be like, oh, that's a lot of money, I just can't do it right now. Instead of like getting in the weeds with you about why they don't want to invest in this moment. And the truth is, being willing to go there is going to separate you from 99% of people selling their offers out there, because it's uncomfortable. Most people will bolt, right? Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll follow up with you later. See you later. And so they're off the sales call. Whereas when you work with someone like me who focuses on the woo and the do, we regulate your nervous system so that you can just have a conversation, staying unattached, neutral, and curious, and ask a few more follow-up questions. Dig deeper. When you're able to do that, not only is it going to set you apart from pretty much everybody else because they're terrified to dig in, but it's also going to represent the fact that you care and give you another opportunity to pitch your offer based on the information you gather. For example, inside my offer is an entire bonus on events and checklist, launch strategies, all the things, because one of the things I teach inside my offer is high ticket premium buyers like to attend events. They like to be in rooms with other high ticket buyers, right? And so it would behoove me to have a bonus in my offer that teaches you how to host these types of events. Now, we all know a confused buyer doesn't buy. So when I'm gathering information about what they want and what they've tried and what they think their missing piece is on the sales call, and they don't mention anything about events necessarily, then I may not mention that bonus. However, in this particular example, when I was having a wonderful sales call with somebody and she said, I just think it's too expensive, it's just not the right time. And I said, totally get it, totally understand. But just for my own information, money aside, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you feel this offer fits, like what you need, and is going to take you to that next level as it relates to getting clients? And she said, well, I think it's about a 7 out of 10. And so I go, oh, tell me more. And she said, well, something I've always wanted to do was host events. And, so I'm looking for someone that can help me with that as well. Now, see, had I not asked these questions, I never would have known that because she didn't mention that earlier on in the sales call. So, and at the same time, I don't want to bombard her with every single solitary thing that's in my offer. I mean, Russell Brunson value stack, Can I get an amen that it's just overwhelming and ridiculous, unbelievably annoying, right? You get all this and a new car for $997, normally $1 million. But the point is, I don't like to overwhelm people, so I pick and choose what pieces of my offer I'm going to share based on what I've been able to uncover about their problem and what they think their solution is. So I didn't mention events because she didn't bring that up until I dug deeper. And so then when I said, well, actually, I didn't even share this with you, but that's one of our bonuses. I have a bonus training checklist, like the whole gamut of running your own either in-person workshop or retreat from somebody who's been hosting events for over 2 decades. And she said, oh, well, if that's the case, then this is a 10 out of 10. Where do I sign? And so I use that specific real world example with you because when it comes to sales calls, it isn't about what you say. It's about who you're being and how well can you continue to hold the space for them without letting your own stuff enter into the equation. And so it's super important. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the whole other side of this isn't just knowing what to say. It's, can I remain in this unattached, neutral, curious, not taking offense, really seeking to understand energy long enough to see if we can't come to a better outcome for the both of us? Because had I not been able to do that, not only would I not have enrolled her into my program, she would have missed out on an offer that was really perfectly suited for her and checked all of her boxes. And so knowing how to hold space for those sorts of smoke screens. So another one is, well, I got to think about it. And again, this is where we just say, totally get it, totally understand. I'm that kind of person too. Like, I don't just make decisions, but tell me more about like what's rolling around in your head. Maybe I could help, right? Like, what are the different things you're trying to consider? And, well, there's this and there's this. And so it's, permission based. Well, do you want us to come up with a plan here? Maybe a runway of like how to make all of this work so that it feels, like a full body yes all the way around. And so I want you to stop thinking of sales as like, I have to convince this person. And instead it's if they want it, they said they did. And now it's about how can we partner together to help you get what you want. I just had a call with somebody today and she was like, oh my God, I really want to do this, but I'm already in this other program and it's at the same time as yours. And I just don't know because, I've also got this client that's at another time and, let me just think about it. And I said, okay, I hear you on this, but let's come up with a few different scenarios of like how we can make this work. And so we did. And so really just staying with them, helping them walk through it, not letting your own fear and attachment get involved. And it's like, if this is what you want, let's figure out how to make it work. And if it's not what you want, tell me more about what you think you do want that this doesn't have. And it could be a situation, if somebody's like, well, Jana, I was really hoping you're going to build me 1 million landing pages and teach me how to be one funnel away. I would say, that is not what I do. But you know what? I'm happy to refer you to someone that does. And so now you are a part of their process of getting to the person that they need to help them. And all of that will come full circle for you, especially when they realize they're not one funnel away, that a magical landing page is not the answer to all their prayers, and that they actually do need to understand some of the key pieces, the foundational pieces that I teach in order to make that funnel work the way they want it to. And this is really the same for time and money. I don't know about time. Okay, time aside, like on a scale of 1 to 10, like how much do you feel like this meets the needs of where you want to go? Notice I ask that question different each time because it's not about the words, it's about the energy you bring, who you're being. And they tell me that it's a 10 out of 10, then again, we're just let's figure it out. Where there's a will, there's a way. Maybe they sign up now and schedule some bonus sessions, and then they don't start the group program for a few months until they get done traveling or whatever it is, or they're done with their wedding, right? But you're already getting the ball rolling and getting them taking action on what they've already said are the next steps that they want. Because that's what's key. It's not about you getting the sale. It's about them taking action towards their goal. And if they've told you that what you have is what they want, then let's get them moving in that direction. Because here's what will happen. And this is something I always tell my clients to tell their potential clients. And I'm going to tell you right now. So write this down. When you get off a call with someone, what will happen is, even if they're a 10 out of 10 and they love it and all of the things and they're just so ready yet, but they need X, Y, and Z amount of time, totally fine. We're going to honor that. Different human designs, different people have different ways of making decisions. They have to discuss it with their partner, whatever it may be. We're going to coach them through that, help them, whether it's speaking with their partner or helping them understand what their ego is going to do after they get off that call. And that is, listen, you know how you feel right now, like you're lit up about this. You know this is where you want to go. I believe that you are now being called to that higher timeline. And you can see and you can feel the momentum of what that timeline brings. Now, when we get off this call, guess what happens? Your ego and doubt and fear starts to set in, because your ego's job is to keep you right where you are, because right where you are is safe, right where you are is predictable, and comfort and predictability and safety is the ego's happy place. So I just want you to know, while you're thinking about it, some of these things will come in, and it will sound logical. Like, well, maybe I need to think about this next year. Or maybe I need to wait until I get clients, which makes no sense if I'm the person that's going to help you get clients. Maybe I need to, whatever it is, but ultimately it's keeping you from taking action on your dreams that you've already told me are really where you want to go. And so if you know anything about intuition is really that first soul, like, yes. And then fear and our ego comes in after to talk us out of our dreams. And so I'm always letting my clients know that, and that if it comes up and if the fear comes in, let's talk about it. Okay. And again, not because I'm trying to convince anyone of anything, but you've already told me this is what you want. You've already told me this is where you want to go. And the last thing I want is for the small little human ego you to talk you out of what you're actually meant to do, because it's always going to do it. It's like the good wolf, bad wolf, like angel and devil on each shoulder. Like, which one's going to win? The one you feed more, the one you listen to. And so giving them that preface, but I want you to start to think of objections as just places where you can help them, partner with them, and walk through it together, especially when they've told you it's what they want. Now, this video is getting a little bit long, but I want to talk to you more about why you might be hearing them in the first place. And again, it's not usually that they can't afford it and they need all this time, and it's because they're not sold. And why are they not sold? Because you haven't articulated it in a way that they say, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Which means either you're not listening really well in the sales calls and showing how and bringing their words to life through your offer, or you're trying to convince them of the modalities and the offer you want to teach and not the offer they want to buy. You're more focused on the process instead of the payoff. And with a lot of my clients who end up being mindset coaches, healers, people in, that type of space, other business coaches as well, they're not keeping their eye on what the client actually wants. They're thinking more about what the client needs. And that's the biggest gap I see. You can create an offer, but if it's not the one they want to buy, it's so much harder to sell. So what we do differently, and if you want to go deeper into these topics that I'm talking about, check out this description for a link to either our next Perfect Your Pitch Party or our boot camp, where we go deep into all three of these different pieces, which is you're creating the offer you want to teach and not the one they want to buy. You're not speaking your ideal client's language as it relates to messaging and effectively communicating about the offer. So maybe you created the offer they want to buy, but they don't understand it. You're not articulating the ROI in a way that they go, well, this just makes perfect sense. Or you are dropping the ball in your sales process and they're on the sales call. And that is really where these objections are coming from. Either they're picking up on some needy, attached energy on the sales call. What we used to say in the sales world is they're picking up on your commission breath, but there's these other reasons, and it usually comes down to one of those three as to why you're hearing things like, I can't afford it. So yes, we want to stay with them and address it on the call and see if we can't walk them through some of these objections instead of handling them or overcoming them. It's like, how can we really partner with them and coach them through some of these objections so that they can actually make the decision they desire to make without a bunch of fear, or you're not setting yourself up properly from the get-go with the offer and how you're communicating about it. So at the end of the day, it's not as simple as just tell me how to overcome the money objection, Jana, because you're probably not really stacking the deck in your favor from the get-go. Not to mention, are you even getting on the calls with the right type of people that are ready to buy? So thank you so much for watching this video. And like I said, if you want to go deeper, check out the description for our next upcoming event, where we will help you with your pitch, help you with your offer, your message, and your sales process. And let me know in the comments, what questions came up for you? What was your biggest key takeaway? Because I'm always wanting to make more videos around what will serve you at the highest level. So it'd be super helpful to know, and we will see you next time.